Hi, welcome to Up Your Nerd Cred. Did you used to know everything that was happening in the Marvel and DC universes? Did finding out that some superheroes are from Marvel and some are from DC blow your mind? Has keeping track of everything that's happening there, and then realizing that we're only talking about the comics universes and not the cinematic ones. And honestly, those different universes with their own multiversal crises have gotten a little bit out of hand. Well, don't worry. Up Your Nerd Cred is here to talk about the gods cosplaying as men, the men cosplaying as gods, and how much the cinematic universes are really leaving out. At the end of each episode, you'll hopefully know a little bit more than you did, and you can hopefully up your nerd cred. I'm your casual nerd host, Cece. I tried to ask an older Gen Alpha if Sabrina Carpenter is the new Britney Spears, and she asked me who Britney Spears is. So I'm just gonna somehow have to accept that my references are old. Not me, of course. I'm still youthful, of course. But, you know, sometimes you just make old references for various reasons. Whatever. Aside from that, I am usually introducing our expert nerd here, but Wanda got real excited when she saw him cosplaying Wiccan when she was looking for a new podcast. Also, make sure you tell your friends to like and subscribe and all that jazz. So he's currently trying to figure out basically how many times he has to have a picnic in the park with her before she realizes that he is not, in fact, her kid. So currently we are at 3 picnics, but I have high hopes for the 4th. Okay, well, in the interim, it's worth taking out a moment to contemplate what it is that we are actually nerding out about this week. And now, just a reminder, listeners, you can nerd out about all kinds of things. It doesn't just have to be heroes and villains, okay? Your policy wonk friends have a lot of opinions about what's happening in DC. I think the Swifties are out here losing their minds about a new album. I've also seen a whole lot of discussion starting about Showgirls, so that's going to be interesting. Elizabeth Berkley should really give Taylor a call. Also, completely separate, the Jonas Brothers 20th anniversary tour has absolutely nothing to do with anything Taylor. So, what am I nerding out about this week? Well, low-key, I had no idea what Labubu was like a month ago. But then my brother got one, and it was really cute, like it's a new baby. And then I found out about like Lafufus, which are also like absolutely wild, but people apparently are just as excited about those. So I'm like, all right, cool. So then a podcast about them ended up in my feed, and it discussed some of the lengths that people go through to get one and flashback to Tickle Me Elmo. I did say that my references were old, but also Tickle Me Elmo was a very real cultural revolution, and if you are unfamiliar with Tickle Me Elmo, you should go look him up, because that was a whole mess. People were fighting in the stores. Anyway, so completely separate, I saw a box at the beauty supply, and I had to get one, right? So here we go. Isn't it cute? I think it's real because I have the box here and everything. Yes. I think this one is actually like Hope based on what's on the side. And also, no, I'm not going to actually do an unboxing, and that is mostly because I had recorded it previously, and that episode has been lost to the ether, and I'm not going to open up both of them. I mean, rare Beanie Babies still sell, right? I figure as long as I keep it in the box. Wait about 30 years, we'll see what happens. All right, well, since I can't jump ahead into the 5th dimension to see when it is that Selenus is going to be the most useful, I propose that I go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll be right back to up your nerd cred. All right, welcome back. So, the Scarlet Witch deep dive was a lot. I am not necessarily going to blame the reality warper for multiple crises coming up in this universe last week, but I'm also not suggesting that perhaps it wasn't all Mercury retrograde that was causing problems. It's not all Mercury causing tech glitches. Anyway, though, instead of talking about the many backstories of Wanda Maximoff, we're gonna really kind of shift gears to something that is probably not going to be a retcon, generally speaking. I don't think it's probably not really a retcon. Anyway, so here, what it is that we're talking about is this. We have a remarkable number of characters that Marvel has been double casting, right? Like most recently, it's already been pretty well established that Doctor Doom is going to be like a major antagonist for the whole next phase, and Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, well now he's Doctor Doom. Honestly though, he's probably going to put together Battleworld, and then Marvel will be able to reboot the Avengers and various timelines and such with younger actors. So, I mean, keeping the younger actors on until they're 90 is going to be way easier than trying to start now with Hugh Jackman. But generally speaking, you know what's really cool? If you think that you've actually like blown your wad with Marvel, and it turns out that they actually want you to come back in something completely different and, generally speaking, way better for your career kind of role. So let's cycle back a little bit when Deadpool and Wolverine first dropped. Okay, so we all remember how fun it was to see Chris Evans's Human Torch from the old Fantastic Four movies hanging out in the void, right? That was very cool. But there are not insubstantial amount of folks who probably ended up in the void because their actors were recast in way cooler roles. Was Johnny Storm ever going to be America's ass? No. Is it possible that in Battleworld, C and Minerva will bump into each other? Unlikely. Honestly though, it's probably a really good thing that we only have the Wesley Snipes blade at this point, because I mean, let's be real. At some point somebody might notice that Cottonmouth and Blade actually have the same face. Look, we can't always rely on Wade, Deadpool, to break the fourth wall, but to be fair, I mean, he's only been in the MCU for like 5 minutes. So let's talk about some of the folks who have been sent to the void because of MCU double casting. I mean, like, yeah, Gambit was about to make a name for himself, but that mostly has to do with Marvel finally getting back the mutant IP more than getting him back into the canon. So let's talk about the folks who got one Marvel paycheck and were lucky enough to then get another one. So let's start with Chris Evans, of course. Of course. We know him. He was in Johnny Storm in Fantastic Four in 2005 and 2007. He was Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, between 2011 and 2019. I mean, okay, look. Chris Evans has been a hot Gjokaj since Not Another Teen Movie, okay? I mean, he was definitely hot when he played Johnny Storm in Fantastic Four. But that's kind of funny because of the snowbake scene. Anyway, so those are the Fantastic Four movies that we only kind of talk about, so we don't have to talk about the other one. But yeah, again, from 2011 to 2019, he was America's ass. And I mean, yes, I guess other things. He was very much like, I guess he was more than just, like Captain America is more than just the ass, but I mean, honestly, come on. I could watch it all day. Anyway, completely separate. So let's move on to Ebon Moss-Bachrach. He played David Lieberman, or Micro, in The Punisher on Netflix, and he was Ben Grimm, or The Thing, in Fantastic Four. So I just want to say, Ebon, good job, bro. You've moved from like a relatively unknown to the kind of actor who could shout outs to his other works in the Marvelverse. Okay, the scene where Ben Grimm was making the thing about the garlic and adding a little bit of zip, that was a shout out to the bear, I'm told. Okay, look, I haven't actually really gotten to watch The Bear. I wish I could, but I've watched a lot of Daniel Tiger. Does that count? Anyway, I mean, he started out as Micro in The Punisher, and I guess Marvel found something delicious in his performance, because they did bring him on to play Ben Grimm in the recent, honestly, probably the best Fantastic Four movie that we've seen, honestly, ever. Even the one that wasn't released. Like, I think I'm going to just rank it as like the top. Also, fun fact, he's patrilineally Jewish, so it's one of the rare times that Marvel casts a Jewish actor for the role of a canonically Jewish character. Good job! Do it again. Do it again. Anyway, moving on. So let's move on from the Fantastic Four front. Actually, I guess we kind of can't, because we have to talk about how Michael B. Jordan was Johnny Storm in that Fantastic Four movie that we don't talk about, but he came back 3 years later as Eric Killmonger in Black Panther. And look, the fan four-stick mess that Michael B. Jordan was in, that could have very easily been his time in the Marvelverse-ish. Okay, that could have ended up being a Madam Web kind of situation where it's just not coming together again. I don't think that we're going to get Dakota Johnson in like the main MCU. But the plus side is that Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler have been collaborating a lot. Please go look at Fruitvale Station if you haven't, especially if you are in the Bay Area, because I've been through Fruitvale Station and the police shooting there was a lot, but that's a completely different movie. So, but since Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler collaborate a lot, we were actually able to get a chance to see him shine as a villain with a point, even if his message are trash. Okay, Killmonger very specifically managed to get Wakanda to open up to the rest of the world and stop hiding by forcing T'Challa to personally reckon with like what the isolationist policies were doing to, to a certain extent, their family outside in the rest of the world. Honestly, again, villain with a point. But also, BT dubs on that Ryan Coogler front. I watched Sinners, and I do not care that Eric Killmonger died. Bring him back. Bring him back twice. Bring him back 3 times. Give me Michael B. Jordan, Michael A. Jordan, Michael C. Jordan. Give me this person. He knows what he's doing so good. All right, so let's cycle back a little bit and get a little bit slightly less aggressively thirsty. But I do remember that Alexa commercial. Anyway, getting less thirsty. So let's talk about Gemma Chan. Now, we first saw Gemma Chan when she played Minerva in Captain Marvel, and she was actually kind of a bitch to Captain Marvel. But to be fair, Carol wasn't actually, part of the gang. She wasn't actually Kree. It's just that Jan Rog worked really hard to try to convince us all that Bears is far less capable than she actually was. But, I mean, come on. Carol Danvers? She's Captain Marvel. I'm just saying. Anyway, but that lady was absolutely not a girl's girl. And I really hope that she was able to get some kind of perk from the Supreme Intelligence before Captain Marvel came back to ruin, basically the whole Kree Empire from, the start in their solar system out. But Cersei in Eternals, though, she was really sweet and nice. And the reason why there's a celestial in the Indian Ocean instead of, the Earth exploding. And also, if she's playing a robot as designed by the Celestials, it's not that big a surprise, I guess, that we would see Cersei's face on Minerva. I mean, I'm guessing that eventually, even the Celestials kind of run out of different faces and they just do their recycling in different locales. Although I do think that the Skrulls of it all would probably really, really annoy her. And that actually warms my heart the most. But warming my heart is good. Here's something that makes me sad in the heart, though. Mahershala Ali. Okay? This man was cast as Cottonmouth in Luke Cage, and he's supposed to be Blade in the MCU. We even got the voice acting for him to be Blade in the MCU. There was a whole line at the end of Eternals about how he was going to be Blade in the MCU. I personally have been really hyped for him to be Blade. But, in Deadpool and Wolverine, Wesley Snipes had made a joke about being the only one. And it's not a joke until they fix this, okay? Come on. The Netflix series are canon now, sure, but we've been waiting here for Blade for ages. We've been waiting here so long that they done sold the wardrobe to Sinners. And that movie came out 3 months ago. Marvel, Kevin, I'm speaking directly to you, Kevin. Y'all are not really doing well with your black-led shows and movies, okay? There was hardly any promotion for Ironheart and Eyes of Wakanda, and then Blade has just been sitting there in production hell for literally years. Seriously, the melanated among us also like superheroes. We would like to see superheroes that look like us, okay? And get the full marketing. Luke Cage came out in 2016, and Mahershala Ali killed it. And he has been technically cast as Blade, and technically had a little bit of a role as Blade. But that's fine. It's fine. I guess we'll just keep waiting. I'm sure eventually it'll come into being. Right? Let's sigh. On that note, what I will do is give a few honorable mentions to other people who have played multiple roles in the MCU. So we have Kenneth Choi. Right? Now, you'll remember him as Jim Morita of the Howling Commandos in Captain America and in Spider-Man Homecoming. He also played Principal Morita. They actually had the picture of him on his desk in his office as Jim Morita. So he had like the picture of his grandfather. It was very cute. I loved it. So Enver Gjokaj, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I have not known properly how to pronounce your name since Dollhouse, but hey fam, editing Kara here. I have had too many people mess up my name for me to not go and double check how to actually pronounce it. So it's Enver Gjokaj. I went and looked it up, found out how he pronounced it. Enver Gjokaj. So names are important and how it's pronounced matters. Anyway, please return to your regularly scheduled podcast. I have enjoyed the work that you have done. Because first you're caught number 12 in the Avengers. Like, you just started out just like, hey, I'm just a guy, I've got to direct people. But then, hang on, what? Agent Sousa in Agent Carter and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Like, it is very cool for you to be able to just sit there and go from like such a bit part to like a possible love interest for, our Peggy. So other people again who are worth shouting out. Laura Haddock was a Captain America fan in Captain America. And then she graduated to being Meredith Quill in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And I will remind you that Peter Quill decided that he wanted to whoop up on Ego the Living Planet because he gave that lady brain cancer. So Quill is very important, and Laura Haddock's role is worth shouting out. So couple of other folks who had like some roles in one spot and are now doing other things. So we have Martin Starr, who started out as a college student in The Incredible Hulk and is now currently starring as Mr. Harrington in the Spider-Man franchise, like in Homecoming and things like that. Alfre Woodard was Mariah Dillard in Luke Cage, and she was also Miriam Sharp in Civil War. Now, Mariah Dillard was the cousin of Cottonmouth in Luke Cage, and again, that was in 2016. And Miriam Sharp in Civil War, you'll remember her as the lady who cussed Iron Man out in the elevator and led to him making his position on the Sokovia Accords. Yeah! So other honorable mentions, Tony Curran played Finn Cooley in Daredevil and then got to play Bor in Thor: The Dark World, which, not the best Thor, but, maybe you can get another one. Because let's be honest, we had Chris Evans start out as Johnny Storm, and then he became Captain America. And then we had Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm, and then he became Killmonger. And should we be concerned about Joseph Quinn? I'm sure he's fine. So we have Sean Gunn, who is playing Kraglin and Rocket in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. Is it technically double casting because Sean Gunn is a pretty talented mocap artist? There's a reason why this is the honorable mention, okay? Let's not get too excited, all right? So Paul Bettany as Jarvis and Vision, and I guess White Vision. And I mostly bring this up because he was way too hype about the time that he was just like, ooh, I'm gonna work against an actor like I've never expected to work against. I'm so excited. It was great. And it was him. Bro, come on. Anyway, and again, so here's a couple other names that you have seen, but you have not necessarily, or I should clarify, you have heard, but you have not necessarily seen. So Chris Hemsworth played Thor, and he also played one of Hajo's heads in Ragnarok. Taika Waititi was Korg, and also another one of Hajo's heads in Ragnarok. In addition, Benedict Cumberbatch was actually the voice of Dormammu, while also playing Doctor Strange. So, I mean, honestly, realistically speaking, if the multiverse saga has really taught us anything, it's that there does exist room somehow, some way, for a better version of who you are to maybe show up later, but with better writing, better lighting, and, better spandex. So let's take a quick break and then we'll get you hyped up for our thrilling conclusion. Welcome back. So, now that we have talked about all of the people who have made double appearances in the MCU, guess what? It's a good time for us to talk about some of the things that are happening in the DC and Marvel universes. So, here's a few things you might want to add to your calendars if you're trying to celebrate any kind of anniversaries of things. So, August 17th, 1977, number 101. Why it's widely considered in many ways a milestone moment that reshaped a lot of the mutant mythology. That is Jean Grey's first rise as the Phoenix within that X-Men issue. And I would like to point out the fact that that is her first rise. That is not her last rise. She does it so much. Honestly, Jean and the Phoenix have kind of a toxic relationship if you think about it, because why can't they leave each other alone? Anyway, August 18th, 1993, we have Deadpool, The Circle Chase, number 1. And so this release basically launches Wade Winston Wilson as his own standalone, I guess, chaos agent, fourth wall breaker. Although I suppose when he fourth wall broke the fourth wall break and he got to 16th wall breaking, but I'm not sure that the dimensions actually get that high. I don't know. But since AM isn't here, I will actually wander off into deep dimensional conversations if I'm not stopped. So I'm going to keep moving and talk about how on August 20th, we actually have the anniversary of Clark Kent's sort of pre-crisis landing on Earth. So this is where he actually landed in Kansas. Well, at least, at some point. This is, again, pre-crisis, so all kinds of things happen. So, listeners, we have in fact come to the end of our podcast. I know. You're clearly devastated about it. How is it over so soon? Well, good news! Our next episode, for real, promise, will be coming out next week. Seriously, none of the expected twists and turns of the past few weeks. I mean, yes, clearly we need to make sure that we work on getting the reality warper on our side to make sure that AM can actually be available for some of our upcoming deep dives. He does have a lot of picnic stuff that he's been eating. Fingers crossed we can figure it out soon. In the interim, of course, you are more than welcome to listen to this episode again if it's not fast enough. So, Nerd Cred takes time to build. But if Ryan Reynolds can murk the mute Merc with a mouth, so that he can then become the Merc with a mouth in the Marvelverse. Well, I just suppose that's marvelous. Okay, so now is also the time to mention that we have an Instagram at Up Your Nerd Cred Pod. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're working on expanding our reach. If you have a burning question that you want us to discuss so that you can up your nerd cred, make sure you like and subscribe and leave comments, and if we pick your question, we will shout you out at the discussion segment. Also, as an aside, please make sure you get your friends and your family to like and subscribe to the pod, and leave good reviews on Apple and Spotify and such. Get everyone to do it. I'm sure you can find somebody who will say nice things about us, right? Tell them to listen to the whole thing. All right. Good night, everyone.